and welcome to another edition of Through Imperial Eyes. My name is Braydon Leadbetter. I am your host.
And I'm your co-host, Jackson Daleen. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, and thank you so much for tuning in last week. Everybody who tuned in really helps the show whenever you actually listen to it, so thank you. And whoever gave that 1-star review on Apple Podcasts, it is okay. We still love you.
We will find you. It's all right.
We will find you.
A huge thank you to Claudia Gray for following us. It's probably not a huge, she probably just follows whoever, but like that's cool. I'm incredibly excited to read
She's
her
only the
High
best
Republic
Star
book.
Wars author.
Yeah, right. Only the gods and goddesses.
Yeah. Yeah, and really quick, this is just a quick warning that this will be a little bit of a longer episode. So if you're on a little bit of a time crunch, maybe set this episode aside for later. But other than that, let's get into a little bit of Star Wars news before we get into our main review of The Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, the first High Republic book. Jackson, what do we got up first for the news?
So real quick, I wanted to talk about what's been going on with Krystina Arielle. She is the new host of the High Republic show and has been getting a little bit of backlash and just kind of generally, I would say, inappropriate and not okay comments. A lot of racists out there being racist, doing racist things. And let's just say here in Through Imperial Eyes, we don't allow that crap. So
not even a little.
Not even a little. Don't be problematic. Don't be problematic. Just don't be problematic. It's easy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are upset because she's been doing a lot of calling out of like white supremacy and like hypocrisy with like white people, and like everybody is taking that as her saying that everybody's racist, every white person is racist, and that's not what she's saying. And I think a lot of people are getting bent out of shape for really stupid takes, and I think it's just dumb altogether.
The worst response ever, to be angry at calling out white supremacy. That's not good.
Yeah, but other than that, I'm really happy to have her as the host for the High Republic show, and we support her here at Through Imperial Eyes. So yeah. So what is next?
So up next, we've got a weird kind of story going on that's not really fleshed out. We'll see how it's going. But Alan Tudyk, who played K2SO in Star Wars Rogue One, the Imperial prison droid who is, rewired to help the rebellion, and specifically help Cassian Andor, will not be in Andor, the Andor series. Alan Tudyk has said he will not be appearing as K2SO, which is weird because a little while ago, Kathleen Kennedy said that he would be appearing in it as K2SO. Personally, I think this is probably just being said just to throw us off. It's probably, if anything, I could see Andor starting out without K2SO, and over time, Cassian Andor gets K2SO and they become, spy buddies and whatnot. But I definitely think, I'd be shocked to actually see that Alan Tudyk isn't at all involved, not even a cameo, but at all involved. That just, he's a big part of Rogue One with, just being who he is.
Yeah, and like the official quote he has from Collider is, "If they're shooting right now, I'm not in it, but if it stays on the air and stories keep getting told, I'll end up in there." So that's very vague and very like kind of, I don't know. In this first run, we may not see him, but I think if it does continue, we will see K2SO. But it's just confusing because there was a Disney investors meeting in April 2019. This was almost 2 years ago, and she confirmed that Alan Tudyk would be showing up in the Andor series. So I'm just, do we think there was like some kind of rewrite that happened, or was there like a scheduling conflict? What happened?
Plans change, I would think. Anything can possibly happen. I genuinely believe that he's going to be in it. I think that if anything, they'll bring him in later and just, work him in somehow. And this right now is just to throw us off Disney's scent of whatever scheming plans they have for their TV shows.
I just don't know if it's like, is it that worth it to hide that K2SO would be in it though?
I would think so. I think K2SO got a really big response when Rogue One came out, especially to see if Cassian Andor got enough hype that he's getting his own show 5 years after Rogue One came out. I would assume that K2SO would be involved because he got more popularity in my opinion, from that than Cassian. And even if that is equal, they at least got popular, you know?
Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of weird, but I don't think
it's a weird.
I don't think it's that big of a deal, but like I just think it's weird how Disney's being weird about it.
We'll eventually get our answer, but I agree. Yeah. Disney's being answered. So moving on, a fun thing that came out that Star Wars announced is essentially the names of the eras that we've seen throughout all the Star Wars movies. We have 3 different trilogies and TV shows in between. It was officially announced and named of what each era is. And so right now, the earliest is the High Republic, which are the novels, obviously.
Right.
And then the prequels and the Clone Wars era is going to now be called the Fall of the Jedi.
Love that.
Which after that is followed of the Reign of the Empire, which includes the new Bad Batch series and Solo. And then there's the Age of the Rebellion, which is the original trilogy, Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars Rogue One, the New Republic, which is the Mandalorian, which will also probably follow, I would assume, Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah, we'll get all the Mandalorian era stuff.
Yeah, that's all that kind of general. Yeah. And then the Rise of the First Order, which is the sequel trilogy, and Star Wars Resistance, the animated series.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool that we actually have like official names, you know, like they're actually
instead of being like the time of the prequel trilogy, or being like, you know, the Fall of the Republic, we can be like, hey, it is the Fall of the Jedi era, or we can refer to, you know, the sequel trilogy era as Rise of the First Order. It's just it's easier that way, I think.
It'll be cool to probably see characters talking about these eras, obviously, you know, before them, and just kind of, you know, see if they one-off mention, be like, oh, that was back during the Rise of the Empire or the Reign of the Empire. And you're like, ooh, yeah, that is during the Reign of the Empire. That's what that's called now. So
I'm just glad they're making the eras like a little more categorical and like,
absolutely.
Yeah. And there's just a name. There's like a set name for each era. It's just a lot easier that way.
So I have 2 sections left that are going to be real quick. It's just we'll talk about each one, that each have their own little thing. The first is video games. Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, the new Lego game coming out. It's supposed to be the biggest Lego game coming out too. They officially announced that the game will have 300 playable characters, 23 planets/moons, and a total of 28 unique locations, and you can play through the campaign for each movie in any order. That's really cool. 300
that is
characters.
Fulfilling all of my wishes for Lego Star Wars.
Isn't that incredible? That's going to be so much fun. The other small little news thing, super cool to hear that Epic Game Store made Battlefront 2 free to play, and because of that, Battlefront 2 got an additional 19 million players that are now playing the game. I think that's really cool. Personally, I still play Battlefront 2. That game's been around since 2017, and while EA is very, you know, kind of dirty with how they want to, you know, build their games to get our money from us, I think Battlefront 2 has been able to re-establish its image and be able to be the game that I think people wanted, not to the fullest extent, obviously. No game is ever perfect, but that's really cool that people are giving Battlefront 2 a big new try, and hopefully that will push the makers to eventually talk about making something like a Battlefront 3.
Yeah, and please make the campaign for Battlefront 3 more than like 3 hours.
Yeah, right. Did you ever play the DLC extended?
Yeah. Where it ties into The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the last 2 little bits of news I have are both about The Mandalorian. Congratulations to The Mandalorian for making being named top 10 of TVs to watch by the American Film Institute.
Yeah.
I think that's obviously, you know, that's kind of a given. The Mandalorian is a killer show, so I'm glad that it's being recognized as just kind of a like cinematically like a good TV series, right. You know?
Yeah.
The other and the final piece of news I have is that today, actually, this was confirmed. Mandalorian season 3 will start filming April 5th, 2021. So that is super cool to hear that they will be getting back to work.
We will not be getting it this year.
Yeah, no, I think that was the general consensus was that we will get season 3 next year. This year is all going to be about the new series, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, that's what I've got for news.
Yeah, and really quick, I just have one more thing. They did release kind of like another film slate with just like release dates, and they did give the release date for Rogue Squadron, the Patty Jenkins directed Star Wars film, will be December 22nd, 2023. I think that was announced already. But then they also said there's 2 other movies that were officially announced, untitled Star Wars movies that are slated for December 19th, 2025 and December 17th, 2027. And let me just say, those do not sound like real years. There's no way they're planning almost 10 years ahead, but that's cool. I wonder if they're going to tie into Rogue Squadron. I wonder if they're going to make it some kind of trilogy. I wonder what they're doing there.
Assuming one of them is going to be the Taika Waititi. Yeah, Star Wars movie.
I'm just wondering because they've announced more movies than they have here. So I'm wondering if, either the Taika Waititi one is coming sooner than some of these. I mean, I know they said it would be down the line, so I doubt it. Or, the Kevin Feige one, which we didn't talk about last week either. It could be one of these too.
Yeah, that's very true. So that'll be definitely cool to see as time goes on of what those are going to turn out to be.
Yeah,
so.
I just don't know. What are they planning 7 years ahead? It's crazy.
Oh, it's like back in the day, dude, Marvel Studios has movies planned like till 2029. I completely would expect the same for Star Wars movies.
Yeah, I hope Lucasfilm will follow suit with Marvel with, the really, really planning ahead.
Absolutely. And because I think they already have too.
Yeah. And I think we have a lot to be excited about when it comes to Star Wars in the next few years, for sure.
Good time to be a Star Wars fan, for sure.
So now for the main event, let's move on to the main portion of our show today, and that is going to be our Light of the Jedi review, written by Charles Soule, the first High Republic book. Let's get into our spoiler-free reactions first. Jackson, what were some of your big picture reactions to this book?
This book definitely exceeded my expectations of how this era was going to be established. I think it did a really good job at giving us everything that we knew without making it like we were being told the same stuff. It was able to really establish new and exciting and different and fun things in this galaxy that we've already been in for a long time, in worlds that we have heard and have known about for a while still giving us new areas and new planets and new, just new things, which I think was really cool to give us, especially because you always wonder, well, what was different, what was so different then than now. And after reading this, a lot was different,
Yeah. And I think this was just such a great entry point for this new era of Star Wars, and a great entry point for just even anybody who wants to get into Star Wars, like novels and books. I think because it doesn't require you to have any prior knowledge before you dive into the book. It puts you into a brand new story. And the inciting incident is, without spoilers, there is a great inciting incident that just has you hooked for the entire book, and it's so much fun.
Oh, the whole entire first part, which is the first 18 chapters, is just this incredibly tense and just panicked state the entire time. And it is just...
Yeah, and it puts you on a big thrill ride. It's so much fun to read.
Introduces you to every character that you need to know for the story. And it introduces these characters in a state of focused work. It's they're trying to stop this big thing from happening. And, it's super cool just seeing how all of these characters are being introduced in not this relaxed state. They're all doing big things. I couldn't find the word I wanted to say.
Yeah. And I think that while reading this is a weird thing to say, but I think this is one of the most cinematic Star Wars books I've ever read. And what do I mean by that? I think it plays like a film when you're reading it. And Soule is so good at throwing you right in the middle of the action, and it actually feels like you're watching a Star Wars movie on screen while you're reading this. It's so surreal to read this book.
And I think Soule really did a good job at not over-explaining things, not, making things just dragging on and what it could be. Everything was very simplified. And then every once in a while, there would be something that like, it's like this, and it would be this real world connection that your brain can register and be like, oh, that's cool. And that's obviously, been done in whatever, in just books before, and explaining worlds and whatnot. But I really liked how simple yet engaging yet not confusing it was in telling things, explaining things, describing things, characters, areas, planet.
Especially characters. You learn to love these characters super quick.
And it's cool too because you meet them and like it gives you a quick rundown of kind of who, like how their appearances, and not just like facial features and whatnot, but like what kind of robes that they decided to wear that day, what their lightsaber looks like, how durable their lightsaber looked. Was that a personal preference? Was that just kind of just a thing that they're doing?
Yeah, but I think that's as far as we can go spoiler free.
Yeah.
If you do not want to be spoiled on this book, please just turn off this podcast, come back whenever you've read it. But if you don't care either way, or if you have read it, stay tuned because we are going to take a big, deep dive into our discussion here about the entire book, complete spoilers. But jumping right in, we mentioned the big inciting incident, the Great Disaster. How did you react to the Great Disaster when you read it? Yeah.
It still gets me because it's 18 chapters of trying to stop this huge disaster happening. And then the very next chapter, the interlude, it's, random emergencies happen and kill 25 billion people. And you're just like, oh no,
Yeah, it's just so crazy to think that, a ship can just straight up get like off course somehow in hyperspace and then just obliterate itself. And then the pieces of the ship getting thrown every which way out across the outer rim. And just like, you don't think of the consequences that has with like hitting planets and like going into, complete star systems.
I love later in the book, they, are trying to stop the pieces that are coming out later since the Great Disaster.
Yeah. And they call them the emergencies.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, this is a cargo hold. There's probably still people. They've probably been in hyperspace for like weeks. And you're just like, that's horrifying. Yeah.
That was like a reveal. And they were like, yeah, there's life forms crying for help.
I think that entire first part just was the excellent hook that needed to happen.
God, yeah.
That exploded everything into happening. And it was just so cool meeting these characters and seeing this horrifying event, just this absolutely terrifying incident, and just this great disaster from happening,
Yeah. And, I think there's a theme throughout this book of just, hope, just like Star Wars everywhere. There's themes of hope and there's themes of
like unity.
Unity. Yeah. And I think that's something really important when you're reading this is, understanding how important it is to value life and to value, your connections to people, because, they don't really cover this. But the Jedi actually kind of have attachments with each other a little bit here.
Yeah. The Jedi are definitely not the Jedi that we've seen before. Like, yes and no. They're Jedi that operate a little differently. I loved how utilized is the word I want to use. How integrated the Force is with just the casual doings, but it's not, oh, the Jedi use the Force all the time. They use it to stir their coffee and whatnot. No, it's like the Jedi use the Force to pilot their ships, to, fire their weapons, to, just anything. And everybody was really in tune. Every Jedi that I think you encounter in the book is really good at using the Force in some shape or form. And I really loved how the book is able to describe how different the Force is to people. The biggest being Avar Kriss is she can hear it. It's the song.
I think so basically each Jedi interprets and like views the Force in a different way. So like Avar Kriss is like the song of the Force. And Loden sees it as like it's a like dance of wind.
It's like a wind. I love my boy.
Yeah, and then like Elzar Mon sees it as like the sea. Burry, the Wookiee. The Wookiee, yeah. He like sees himself, I'm quoting the book here, as like a single leaf on a gigantic tree with deep dug roots and sky high limbs.
Wow, is
like,
that,
it's just so
are
cool.
you a Wookiee from Kashyyyk? Like, wow,
yeah,
do you live
it's
on a
crazy.
nature planet? Yeah.
Yeah, but like I think I would argue that this is like the most in tune with the Force we've ever seen. Like we've ever seen Jedi, and like this is the most we've seen them rely on the Force for like all of their actions.
This is the most characteristic I think I personally have seen the Force. I like seeing how everybody was able to kind of reach out with the Force when it felt like this conversation, and they were like, yeah, the Force could respond. I have no idea. Like the Force does whatever it wants to do. I like how there's still this ambiguity of how the Force works, but some Jedi are like, yeah, like I know, for an instance, if I reached out and used the Force to help me land, it would work. But then there's people like Elzar Mon who wanted to just see how far he could go with it, and not like,
he does a lot of experimenting with the Force.
He reminds me of Anakin in that sense, but I think it's funny because he himself reminds me of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and he's also a little scatterbrained, but I kind of like that about him.
Yeah, I like it too. It's a very natural feeling, a very realistic sense, especially for a Jedi, you know?
Yeah, he's like that Lone Ranger type.
I love that. Oh, I hope we see more of Elzar. He was a fun one.
Yeah, but going back really quick to my point about like attachment with the Jedi here, I think there's like a closeness and bonding between the Jedi that we haven't really seen before, because, you know, in the prequels, they're so stoic and like no attachment. And we have that connection between Avar and Elzar where like they literally know what each other are thinking a lot of the time. And like they have such a in tuneness with each other. And it makes me wonder how, you know, they're so open to like the connections and everything like that. It makes me wonder if maybe attachment led to the downfall of like the High Republic. And that's why why they're so like worried about, you know, Jedi not having attachments and, you know, connections further down the line, is what if there was something that happened that led to the fall of the Republic here?
I'm kind of thinking that too, is that over time they think they're going to be, you know, careful about it when they're just obviously not, and it's going to get someone hurt and possibly even killed. You know, it's probably going to end up causing some damage and changing some people's perspectives of how Jedi should work. Especially since, like, as of right now, the only two people I know that are still kicking it are going to be Yoda and Jarl Poof. But, you know, they're hanging out. They're probably
Jarl Poof lives. He's still alive.
He's hanging out.
Yeah, it's so cool. A big saying throughout this entire book, and I think we're going to see this throughout the series, is the Republic. Like, their main slogan is "We are all the Republic." They say that to each other all the time. What do we think that means?
It's definitely like it's the slogan of hope. It's, you know, we are all in this together. You don't feel like you have to. It's I think especially in this book and how most of this book is in the Outer Rim, that's kind of the message that the Republic is trying to push, especially with opening the Starlight Beacon, which is it's essentially the Justice League hub. But
we'll get to that in a second.
But, I think it's this slogan of hope of we are all in this together. No longer do you have to feel you have to be fighting for your food. No longer do you have to feel unsafe from the dangers and liberties that are being abused and used in the Outer Rim. Especially with the Starlight Beacon being put in, you know, you can feel safe. You can feel part of the Republic because we are all the Republic. I think that's kind of, and in this book, that message is not not, I would say, harmed. It's not the message that's harmed. It's that they use the message to reiterate their purpose, and in establishing a safe galaxy. It's to help everybody out with it.
Yeah, and they say that to each other. It's kind of like the Jedi and May the Force be with you.
Yeah.
It's kind of that, and it's like basically their way of saying, despite all our differences, we're all members of the Republic working towards the same goals. And like, if everyone can rally behind that idea, then like maybe things can happen, and we can strive as a Republic. And I think that's really cool that they're, focusing on that sense of unity. And, Chancellor Soule, the Chancellor of the Republic, is like the first awesome, powerful, and like she just knows how to run a republic the way Palpatine obviously didn't. And, obviously for more evil ways.
Well, yeah, and like doing her job for the sake of the Republic. There's a part.
Yeah, and she's so compassionate and cares about people, and I love that about her. And I love how she has like basically 2 space lions.
Yeah. Oh, the
that
giant
are like with her all the
things,
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's cool. And even in the book, it was like she didn't say this to, just because. She said it because she believed it. And it was like, we are all the Republic. And you're just like, yeah, we are, dude. Like, we are chilling.
You really want to rally behind her when you're reading this.
Yes.
It's so great. Another thing I wanted to talk about, the state of Coruscant here in this book. We get a moment where we're with Chancellor Soule. She's like standing at the highest peak of like this mountainous area in Coruscant called Umadi. And a lot of people, like a lot of tourists even go there because they say it's the highest point in Coruscant. It's just so strange to see that there are still, there's still untouched natural land in Coruscant in this time.
Yeah, I definitely liked seeing like I said earlier, new in things that we have been familiar with, especially that, I don't think anybody in the future eras of Star Wars even knew Coruscant had natural abilities, had natural areas to it,
Yeah.
I bet you they've only known that place to be a giant city. So that's really cool seeing sacred places in familiar spots that we didn't necessarily thought would exist.
Yeah, and again, in that moment, in the book, it talks about how the planet has been run, like even in the past, by a lot of different kinds of governments. Like there has even been brutal empires in the past and like pure democracies and stuff like that. It's just so strange to hear like of even a past before this that we haven't even heard about.
Oh, for sure. I thought about that too, especially with, I think a cool thing is how in this book and timeline wise, Bacta, the universal healing component in the later Star Wars eras, is just being introduced in this book. It's just being invented.
Yeah, they call it like a brand new miracle drug called Bacta.
I think it's cool seeing how this universe is very well before its time, but who is it? It's a Portal Angle, who's like, he's been around for 3 centuries already. He's just chilling.
Yeah.
He was like, I've seen it, when he was like, I am glad that, the galaxy has the Republic, because, the Republic used to be, or the galaxy was a confusing and chaotic place. And it's like, well, what was that like? What are the ancient times?
Yeah. This book just makes you curious. And I love that. Something that is like kind of a central point of like the workings of the Republic here is the construction of the Starlight Beacon. And that's kind of like the Republic's main space station, almost like a foil to the Death Star, I would say.
Justice League Tower.
Justice League Tower. What I have a feeling, this is just a prediction, early prediction, that thing is going to get blown up sometime in this series.
I think that's probably how either like mid-series or near end series will go, and that's what leads to the fall of the Republic.
Yeah, but that thing's not making it out of this series, unfortunately. But it's kind of cool how they're like kind of trying to make like little civilizations of like in like a ray and beacon of hope for the Republic with this space station. I wonder if they're having people live on it, or like if it's just like for passerbys.
I think so, because it talks about how like I think its main purpose is that it will be not like a tourist attraction, but it is for people to come and pass through. But it talks about how it's got like a merchant area, and there's, obviously there's the Jedi area, there's going to be, Jedi hanging out and whatnot. And, we'll talk about it later, but rip my girl Jorah Malley, who her title of running the Starlight Beacon for the Jedi was given to Avar Kriss after Jorah's untimely demise. I definitely think we will probably have stories of Jedi who were strictly staying on the Starlight Beacon and are, that is their base of operation.
Yeah, but sorry to backtrack, but we're going to go back a little bit to the during the Great Disaster, the system, the star system that the Jedi and the Republic are trying to save is called the Hetzal system, and it's kind of like this big, like rich, like crop rich, huge population system of like a planet with moons. And it's funny, the moons are called Fruited and Rooted. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of fun to say.
Like, oh, yeah.
But like, what are some takeaways of the Hetzal system and like the importance of saving the system?
I mean, definitely the importance of saving the system is that the system runs as a massive food supplier, especially for the Outer Rim. So that, stopping
And of course, there's, several billion people who will die if they don't save them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. From stopping the rogue liquid Tabana container, just
we'll get into that moment
towards,
in a second.
Right. But I think it was really cool kind of seeing a system, the entire system dedicating its work to what it was good at, growing crops. And it was to the point that even they discovered that, specific crops that they thought they had to get clean up and pesticide, they didn't, because it actually gave them more. It gave them better. It gave them this whole separate fruit that I think it talks about in the Kevin Tarr chapter. It talks about it gives him a brief little like history of what he's done. It was like he discovered that if these two plants merged every 2 years, they would sprout like a whole other fruit that was super rare.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool that like it talks about that kind of stuff and just kind of the historical lore of just this system,
Yeah. And there's a really great moment, a moment of silence for our great friend, Captain Bright, who sacrificed himself to save, like 3 people, but he cared about, saving people so much that I just wanted to mention the noble death of Captain Bright because I loved him. And as soon as the end of that chapter, he died and his last words were, "We're all the Republic." And I was like, oh man, hit me right there in the feels.
I think it's cool as the book goes on, you meet the petty officer and the other, I think it was another officer, Enemin, and I can't think of the other guy's name, but how they get ranked up and they, show back up helping out in specific moments in the book. And I think it's cool how it's like, they kind of were thrown into it, but they stayed with it. Like that too with the 2 people who were husband and wife initially helping on the Starlight Beacon and heard about the Great Disaster happening.
Oh yeah, Joss and Pika.
Yeah, jumped in to help. I think that's cool that people care. People actually
even if
care.
Even if you're not a Jedi,
absolutely.
So let's get into. I think we've covered a lot of the kind of inciting incident moments. Let's get into the big savior of the Hetzal system, where the Jedi are all coming together to move this big container of liquid Tabana. That moment kind of made me emotional. I'm not gonna lie.
I remember reading it in my living room, and the TV was on, and whatever show that was on had this very like intense music happening, and it fit perfectly in the moment where all the Jedi, stop to meditate to reach out in the Force and literally push this container down so it doesn't hit the sun and wipe out the whole system, killing 12.4 billion people. I thought that was really cool, especially showing us Avar Chris's ability to kind of connect with every Jedi, and hearing the Song of the Force. And we saw that, I think, in its not its fullest ability, but to a pretty good extent, to the point that, even people like Master Yoda, joined in and helped with it when he was, God knows where.
He was across the galaxy.
Yeah, God knows where, teaching younglings. Yeah, that's kind of the whole thing with Yoda in the whole book, is that he's just kind of off doing his own thing. But like, even he helped, is that the Song of the Force reached everybody. And that was super, super cool to just see this moment of equal unity, to see all of the Jedi together working. Whereas before, we've only seen 1 or 2, 3 Jedis at a time doing the thing. I think it's cool to, even in just a singular a singular event, that there's already like 20 Jedi there. So now, think about it, of all the thousands of Jedis who are helping just to push this crate down. Yeah.
And they say that it used so much force power that even some Jedi even died. And it's just crazy.
That's just crazy.
It is just so crazy how much Jedi are willing and compassionate to sacrifice themselves just to save, again, I say it like it's a little thing, just to save an entire star system. But there's this cool moment of Avar Kriss on the ground level, and she's kind of meditating, getting ready to she's calling out to the Jedi, and there's this moment where her lightsaber kind of floats up above her, ignites, and starts spinning. And it starts spinning faster and faster. And then it kind of creates a song to her. And she calls it the Song of the Saber. And it's spinning faster and faster, kind of accompanying the Song of the Force she has. And there's a really cool quote in the book where, they're explaining what's going through her head, and they call the lightsaber not a weapon, but an instrument. And I thought that was a really cool moment.
I kind of building off of that, I won't go on a huge tangent. I really liked how integrated and useful that the lightsaber is, besides being the weapon of a Jedi,
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious in this book that the Jedi, if not all, especially I think characters like Loden's the one who sticks out in my mind, because I think he's the one who has the observation that he doesn't necessarily want to use his lightsaber all the time. He doesn't want to kill these people. He will if the Force wills it. He will if he has to. But
there's a moment where we're getting inside Bel's head, and whenever they're with Loden, when they're first fighting off those guards that are on the wall, the exterior walls of the of whatever that community was, and it says that hearing the sound of a lightsaber is the sound of training, focus, and the choice of a last resort. And I think the most important part of that is the choice of a last resort. You only pull out your lightsaber if
absolutely
the moment is dire. Yes.
The point I was making, though, is I really liked how the lightsaber isn't just a weapon. It is the key to start most of the vehicles. It was, they needed to use it in order to access weapon maneuvers in a ship, or, they take a little Land Rover thing out and drive that.
There's a part where there's a character named Tiami who, unfortunately dies, but there's a cool moment where she's activating her weapon system, and her lightsaber floats up with she uses the Force to make her lightsaber float up and attach to the ship to activate her weapon system. And that was kind of cool.
Whatever your lightsaber color is the light of your system too. So it's cool seeing that happen with different characters, and they're it's the light up was white, the lightsaber color, and you're ooh, that's cool.
But yeah, I think that whole that whole first, I would say, act of the book is just some of the best written Star Wars I've read in so long.
Just so much packed into 18 little chapters that this tense roller coaster from the very beginning. And
you get to page 150, and you're wait, there's more?
Yeah,
there's more
you're
of this?
There's a whole book to this, isn't there?
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on to kind of after that whole incident happens with the Great Disaster and the Jedi saving the Hetzal system. We meet the Nile for the first time. Now, what are your first impressions of the Nile when you met them?
I hold this impression, but I also have specific points that we'll talk about everything. But my initial reaction I think I'm not disappointed. Not definitely not. But I definitely wasn't as hooked as the bad guys of just kind of being these marauders. I think they did a really good job at creating a different, outside, and unique sense to these Raiders of the Nile. But I think kind of at the end of the day, it just was like, yeah, they're just, they're Raiders. And even then, I think that was even addressed in the book of how even like the Republic officer, what was his name? Kronara. Sorry, I was looking at notes. He was just like, these are just Raiders. Like, how could they be doing this? How could they be pulling off stuff like this? So I thought that was cool. I definitely think that the stuff that they gave the Nile, everything I liked about it was stuff that I actually realized I ended up liking about Markian Rowe, but we can talk about him in a minute.
Sitting there listening to Wreck Punk.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Space dubstep.
And they're like so ruthless. They almost seem like not put together all the way yet. Like there's like certain people who like kind of want to defect, but there's other people who are like super loyal to Markian Rowe. They were like
Vikings. In the sense of just, burn, steal, and pillage. But yeah, they weren't as I guess formed together as they were claiming to be. And it was definitely, what made me think it made me connect it to I don't even know what they were called, but in Mad Max Fury Road, like
I know what you mean.
Bad guys of that, of how it's they're all one, but at the end of the day, it's all about you. It's all about how far you can go into it and how whatever you're willing to do to make it to the top in the Nile. And I like that. I like that it was essentially this their whole kind of theme was broken trust. Not everyone seems like who they are.
Yeah, and I love, this is a little later on, but I love that moment before they go off and like do whatever they were going to do. They basically take space crack, like the smash bulbs.
Oh yeah.
That was such a great moment. I was like, oh yeah, space crack.
My favorite is when Markian cuts Kasav's hand off and they're all leaving. After everything, he goes, "Oh, Kasav, don't forget your hand.
Don't forget your hand." Yeah, it was such a great moment. Like I almost feel like I view Kasav as like the Hondo kind of character.
Yeah.
Because he is a weak way. Yeah. But also just like he just gives off Hondo vibes.
Yeah, right. I liked Lorna D a lot. She reminded me of the Twi'lek in The Mandalorian. The heist crew with them, and just kind of that, like, I think it's funny because Twi'leks usually aren't scary. I like seeing species that we are used to being kinder not be kind, especially with Lorna D, whose whole thing was that she was quiet but like was the most ruthless of them all. Like her people were just monsters. Just didn't care, and like about
her ship like never makes appearances. Like she's always hidden.
Oh yeah. Her whole ship is designed to be stealthy.
Yeah, but yeah, I think like the whole establishment of the Nile, they kind of have this system where like Markian Rowe is what is called the Eye, and he's like the leader of like everybody, and like commands all of what they call the Tempest Runners, which is the Lorna D, Kasav, and what was the other guy's name?
Panada.
Yeah,
Panada.
Yeah, and then they also have like the strikes and clouds and storms, which I guess rankings.
It was a rank system, so it was your storm is the top, and then it's cloud, and then a strike.
Yeah, and I guess they have this rule of 3 for like the Tempest Runners, where I guess there can only be 3. Is that what he meant by that?
I think the rule of 3 was more I viewed it as essentially the rule of 3 followed the 3 Tempest Runners. It was essentially
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Like the three is each individual group, and then there's the Eye, who obviously oversees all. And it was the Eye breaks tiebreakers, and the Eye always gets 2 votes, and they always follow whatever the Eye does because the Eye gives them paths, which is the just explaining it. This is what essentially makes the Nile different from other raiders and marauders, was that they have access to hyperspace lanes that aren't
no one else has access
mapped
to.
out. Yeah, they aren't. No one knows. And I really liked what the Eye actually was, where the paths actually came from. I think that was a really cool creative way to kind of show that, because it played into I love Star Wars like force nature. I like in Rebels, the space whales who could travel hyperspace. It's this woman who was is she a Santeca?
Yeah. So in this book, the Santek, I guess they're Lore Santeca's ancestors.
Yeah.
But like they're like hyperspace experts, and like they're like prospectors, explorers, but they're also like an openly like gay couple, which is, I think, was really cool that we had like our first like Star Wars openly gay couple, like husbands. I thought that was really cool.
Who lived on Naboo as a retreat.
Yeah, and they're kind of like conceited and snobby, but I love that about them. But then like they have this relative, what was her name again?
Was it like Mali? Like Mali or something like that?
Something. Mari. They have this really ancient relative who kind of has the paths, or what they're calling it. They're like on their head, and she kind of is what navigates the Nile's ship.
She like had this freak accident that essentially made her be able to see any hyperspace lanes. And Markian Roth, who is the Eye of the Nile, like keeps her alive in this giant like pod for she's just been around for centuries and centuries, and it has just like,
just give me a break.
And like, it's funny because it talks about in the book, it's like she probably doesn't even know what she's doing. She just thinks she's still prospecting, and you're like, oh yeah, like grandma's just helping out. Is that the thought that's around?
Grandma's in there flipping switches.
Yeah, right. It's just wires hooked up to her body. Gets a shock of electricity every time she gets a little too zoned out.
And they're like, "Oh my god, I think I just killed her."
Like,
whenever they shot her, and they had to bring in the doctor.
You're gonna kill her too many times. Yeah. She had another seizure. I know.
And the Nile has like this thing where they want whoever does the Nile wrong or like betrays the Nile to pay the price. And there's kind of like this. There's a couple moments where Markian Rowe is trying to get people to pay the price, and basically what they do is they just like shoot them out into the void of space and kill them.
It's so cool because like their base of operation is essentially this giant floating platform in what's called no space. And it's just this bubble. And it's like you step outside of the bubble, you're in no space. So if you pay the price, you just get tossed out into no space. And that was tough as nails. The first time that happens when Kassav throws the dude out. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, you just feel the ruthlessness of the Nile here.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, like that's awesome.
Yeah. But kind of moving on into like the next portion of the story, where we get to a planet called Elfrona. It's kind of like this world of slate and clay where Porter Engle has like a Jedi outpost there. And, Loden and Bell and Indira, who we meet later, are there. And Loden is like kind of training Bell because Bell Zettifar, who is Loden's Padawan, has this issue where he can't quite catch on to the aspect of like catching yourself with the Force when you're falling. And he doesn't believe in himself. He's super terrified of it all the time. And basically the way Loden goes about it is he just straight up pushes him off a cliff and hopes he makes it.
Just knocks him off.
It's like 100-foot cliff. And he's just like, all right, there you go.
Like, you'll figure it out.
But I think that bond between Loden and Bell is really cool here. And Loden is such an ass. But I love him.
I love Loden.
He is so wise, but like he's like sarcastic and quippy, and he kind of is the Han Solo almost of Jedi. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I loved Loden Greatstorm. I thought he was a really cool. He reminded me of Piccolo from Dragon Ball.
Oh my gosh,
that's what he makes.
does.
That's what I think of, like Dragon Ball Z Piccolo.
Oh my gosh,
when he's just like he's stoic the whole time, but he's just making fun of everybody. Like,
yeah, and like he just completely lovable.
Yeah. Ugh.
Even though he's a jerk. Yeah. And then we meet this Jedi called Porter Engle, and he's kind of like, he's been around for centuries. He's seen some stuff, but he loves cooking.
Yeah. Oh, what does he make? Is it the 9-egg soup?
9-egg soup.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. He just sitting there making his 9-egg soup. I'm like, I want some 9-egg soup.
Yeah, just chilling on Elfrona, making soup on the rock planet.
Yeah. But while we're on this planet, they get kind of like this is it a hollow transmission that warns like the Blythe family is being attacked?
Someone calls them, yeah.
This
family's being kidnapped so they can be ransomed off to, it's like the rich grandparents who live on Alderaan.
Yeah, something like that. At first I thought it was going to be, before we even got into the Suntech, I thought it was going to be the Suntech as they were going after, and I thought they were going to but like, we learned that, they're called the Blythe family. It's like a mother, a father, and like, is it 3 kids? I think it's 3 kids.
No, it's two kids. It's two kids.
Yeah. And they're kind of,
son and a daughter.
They're attacked by the Nile, and like the Nile, upon like every entrance of their attack, they have like this blue mist that kind of like basically knocks you out so they can take you and kidnap you. They have like this cool like safe room in their house that they go up into, but I guess the Nile ends up getting them, and then they start, they basically throw them into like the back of like a transport, and then they head off into the distance so they can get them off the planet and, transport them, and the Jedi have to stop it. And this is kind of like another really important moment of the book, is like this big chase that the Jedi go on in order to, retrieve the family.
Yeah, this is like one of the, it's like this and the other the big space battle that are like the two like big climactic, like these are the big moments of the final act.
Yeah, and it was such a cool, it was like very Western. It almost kind of reminded me of like a train heist or like a, something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And, we get these cool moments of, Porter, they once they're chasing the transport, they realize they're being attacked, and Porter Engle kind of stays behind to fend off all the Nile. And
what
go ahead.
What do they call him when he like flips? What do they like? What was the name? It's like the blade of something.
Yeah, something like that. And he's like, I hate that name.
But it's oh, it's so cool because it's just like he wasn't angry. It was like he's been a Jedi long enough to know that he doesn't have to be angry. It was like he was certain.
Yes.
He was certain that these people had done wrong, and he was certain he was going to fix it. And you were just like, that's super cool.
And he has this moment where he's like, oh, so you're just going to shoot at me? I see how you are. I understand you now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When he's getting sniped at from the ridge, and he's just like standing there holding the. He's like, you killed my. He cuts the dude in half by throwing the lightsaber at him, and it cuts the rock in half, and he's just like, oh, there you are. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah. I think Porter is just the ultimate like Jedi badass. And I love him so much.
Just forced to be reckoned with. But he, in real talk, he's just an old man who just likes making his 9-egg soup.
Like, there's a moment where he like legitimately believes in the Force that he is going to die because there is a blaster shot. I think, was it a blaster shot, or was there like a blaster pointing at him and he didn't have time to react? Or something like that. I don't exactly remember, but like we got his inner monologue.
Oh, he like throws his lightsaber. Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, he's like he missed it by like an inch, and he was like, "Well, this is it. I'm gonna die." And then beforehand, he's like, before he dies, he's just regretting all of like the recipes he didn't try. It's great. I love it so much. But yeah, we have Loden and Bell going off on these steelies, which are basically space horses.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of what
they're just space horses, and then we meet this like space dog called Ember, which is like really awesome. I love
so
Ember.
Wholesome. Yeah, I like how they're like, like Jedis aren't supposed to have attachments, but everyone kind of simultaneously agreed that the place needed a dog. So now we have this, it's a fire dog. That's what happens is the dog saves Porter and
that's what it was. That's what it was.
Guy alive.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. Yes, that was exactly what happened. I totally forgot about that.
And you're just like, oh, that's cool.
yeah. And then he's like, he loves Ember too, and like, oh my god, that whole like sequence is so wholesome to me.
So awesome. It's so awesome.
Yeah. And we get this scene inside of like the transport that the Blythe family's in, and they're kind of just like, you know, we're gonna get through this, even though they didn't think they were going to. And we see from the inside, they see their Steelies coming up. They're like, what the heck? Aren't those our Steelies? What are they doing here? And then there's this awesome quote as soon as she realizes.
Erica, they all ignite their lightsabers. Yeah,
and then Erica Blythe, the mother, says, "By the light, they're Jedi." And I was like, "Yeah!" I was like, "That is the moment." If this is a movie in the theater that you would have the audience cheer right there,
just cheer. Yeah,
you get the cool John Williams score in there. Oh my gosh, this needs to be made into a movie immediately.
Yeah, honestly, it's really well paced that it could just pull off as just this incredible movie. It'd be so cool.
Yeah. And then, you know, towards, you know, the end of this whole chase sequence, Porter ends up taking the mother because the mother escapes, and like she takes her to like the outpost.
They throw her off the car
as bait, and then Loden and Bell have to go in what are the Jedi ships called?
The Vectors.
Vector. Yeah, there was like they were in a Jedi Vector with it was Loden, Bell, and Indira, and they have to go on and chase this transport that has the father and the daughter.
The two kids.
Yeah. There's this really cool kind of, I don't even know how to describe it other than like an action sequence where like Indira gets on the transport and kind of wipes out all of the Nile.
Well, they throw the daughter. They toss the daughter off the ship, and that's when Bell has his big moment of landing with the Force, is that he jumps out of the Vector and catches her. It's like Iron Man 3, you know, they're both fallen, and he catches her and lands, and then Loden and Indira go up into space, and
that does happen, but you're right, that does happen beforehand.
Jumps in and slaughters everybody, and then takes the boy.
This is kind of the moment. This is kind of the moment that Bell kind of comes to terms with his whole arc, and like he from the beginning of the story they set up that Bell doesn't really believe in himself. He doesn't believe in his Force abilities, and we have like these lessons of him falling. He can never get it right. And then in this dire moment where he has to save this little girl named B, he's able to catch himself with the Force while also saving B. And I just kind of call this, like, I have it written down, Bell and his great fall, literally. Because like the setup and payoff of him being a Jedi Padawan and transitioning into a Jedi Knight, and we get this last wholesome interaction with him and Loden, where Loden's basically like, "Well, that's it. You're a Jedi Knight. Congratulations."
Yeah, he's like, "Once this is all over, we're gonna get you all propped up and fixed up, and you'll be a Jedi Knight." Yeah,
and then little did we know that would be the last time that in this book that we see them together communicating.
Yeah, because Loden Greatstorm gets kidnapped, which honestly, I'm surprised he did get kidnapped. I'm surprised they didn't just kill him, but that's also because that was kind of Markian's whole plan was to
get a Jedi,
get himself a Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a really cool kind of sequence too. Is I'm glad that Markian Ro is like the villain. It's not. Yeah. I really thought he was just going to be one-offed, and that was like that was. I was
like, is he going to even make it out of this book?
Yeah, I really thought that too. And then I liked it. Turned out that everything was planned, And it felt like Unbreakable, like everything was planned, like from the disaster all the way to the dude calling the Jedi to help out the Blythe family. Everything was planned.
Yeah, because it's revealed to us. It's revealed to us that the Nile ship was actually planted in the hyperspace lane so the great disaster would happen to the legacy run.
It was all, and like just and using the Nile into essentially exposing themselves to where the Republic could wipe out one of them and just assume that it was all done, when now Markian had, you know, everybody on his side. It wasn't kind of this you know, all for one for all kind of thing. It was more work for me under fear, because I will destroy you and I will set the paths you astray. And I now have a lightsaber, so
yeah. And as soon as he got his hands on that lightsaber, I was like, uh-oh, this is bad news.
That part with him and Lorna D gave me chills, where you don't see his face, but she was like, I can tell he's smiling as he's holding the lightsaber blade to her neck. That's so cool.
Yeah, we basically get this moment of Marky and Ro and Loden. When Loden's been captured, he's like kept in this cell thing. And Marky and Ro comes and visits him, and there's this weird moment where he takes out this weird glowy purple rod of doom and like hypnotizes Loden somehow.
Does he? Is that what he does? I didn't necessarily understand that he hypnotized him.
I think he like put him under some kind of trance or something.
Oh.
So like, where do you think we go from here with Loden?
Well, I definitely think in the next book we probably aren't going to see a lot of Loden. I think the next book is about I always forget her name. Joramali. It's her apprentice that is joining the front lines, and then the conflict of the book is that I think his ship encounters a hyperspace problem, and they, you know, have their whole thing. So to answer your question, I didn't realize that he had like hypnotized him.
It was something like they kind of alluded to the fact that, like, you know, Loden kind of his mind is somehow not there anymore. Yeah.
That's kind of scary. Do you think Markian's probably going to like try and build? It's like Transformers, when they bring back Transformers from the dead using dark energon. He's probably going to make an army of evil Jedi. He's got like an army of brainwashed Jedi.
Ooh, I have a fan theory right now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the theory. Markian is going to somehow use this purple rod of doom to start taking Jedi in as like experiments, and then he's going to end up creating what we know from the Old Republic as Darth Nihilus, because the Nihilus. What if?
I wonder if Markian himself will become, because that gives me a theory that.
But how can you like manually make yourself in tune with the Force? Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Is what if the purple stick of death like drains Force? It pulls Force, like Force abilities or whatever. Ooh. And that reaction is you just kind of end up this like brainless mumbling like whatever. These are sound theories here. That's a little spooky.
Yeah. A little spooky, but just a couple of things that were mentioned throughout the book near like the area we're talking about here. It's mentioned that Jorah's kyber crystal in her lightsaber is like a healed red crystal from an ancient Sith light spear. I was like, ooh, light spear. I was like, are we gonna get some ancient Sith here, because like they mentioned a great Sith war. I was like, ooh, there's some story we're not hearing about.
Yeah. It's like, it hasn't been a while since the Great Sith War, and the Mandalorians haven't kicked up any problems recently, so all was well, really.
I was like, ooh, we're going to get a Great Sith War sometime? That'd be cool. But yeah, so kind of near the end there, we have all of the Jedi aboard the Starlight Beacon for like a whole Republic-wide, I guess, meeting, and they're basically saying, who's going to be running the Starlight Beacon Jedi, which is now going to be Avar Kriss. And then we get this mention of a renowned Jedi architect named Paulo Hidalgo. And I was like, that's definitely Pablo Hidalgo.
Yeah.
That whole meeting kind of, happens. And then we're kind of like at this all was well moment. But then we get this kind of epilogue where it's just Avar Kriss and Elzar Mann kind of just like walking, and kind of like a walking talking scene. And then as soon as Avar walks away, Elzar gets this like mysterious vision of like the horrors that will be happening in the future. What did you gather from that?
So I know I was wrong, but my brain initially told me that Elzar predicted Anakin. That's what I thought at first. I definitely think this will change. Obviously, he's seeing something of a lot of Jedi dying, which honestly kind of furthers my evil Jedi army. Is that essentially Markian just like sends these Jedi mind slaves to just slaughter, and that's just probably what they're gonna do, is just kill a lot of Jedi. That's scary. That's a scary thought.
I think sometime in this entire series, we're going to get some kind of like big Jedi massacre moment. Yeah,
horrifying. Honestly, that's probably. I bet you that's what will be the end of the Starlight Beacon.
Yeah,
that's the big
there's
Empire
nothing
Strikes
there's
Back
nothing
moment.
to save it.
Is that they destroy the Starlight Beacon,
dude. That imagine like,
I know that's so heartbreaking.
Gosh.
Like, ooh,
because I'm already emotionally attached to these characters in the Starlight Beacon and everything.
I'm so invested. So invested.
But yeah, I think that was a great note to end it on, because it leaves you hungry for more, and like where this story's going to go, and like how these characters are going to develop.
I liked that I like that this anthology isn't like episodic to where each book has a start and a finish. It is this overall story that each author will be able to tell. And I think that's really cool, because I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I thought it was just going to be, these are the tales of the Jedi and the High Republic, whereas it's actually this like big problem. There's this issue happening in the galaxy.
Yeah. And I think that I think the future of the High Republic is dark, and I can't wait to see where that goes.
For sure.
Really quick, there's kind of a moment that I wanted to talk about. That kind of made me go, "Aw," was Burry at like that Jedi banquet thing, where he's trying to communicate with everybody, speaking Shriwook, and he's like saying like all these nice things to people, and they can't understand him, and they're just giving him blank looks. And I was like, no, please be nice to him.
The light of my life, Burry, the Wookiee Jedi.
The young Wookiee.
So wholesome. So wholesome.
And like he sees that kid like scared and alone.
Surge.
Yeah, he sees him, and the only thing he knew what to do was to go over and comfort him, because that's what Wookiees do.
And just like he like reached out in the Force and like helped the kid like understand that it was okay.
Yeah.
Like, it was okay. It wasn't his fault. Poor kid, like thinking that he caused like this entire destruction when he just didn't.
Yeah, and I just also love how instrumental Burry was in the saving of the Hetzal system. And
how like just his reaction to all of a sudden sensing the fear and pain, and
and realizing that there were life forms on the bits and pieces of the Legacy run. Yeah.
My thing I want to talk about that I just reminded myself, saying fear and pain. Markian Ro's prison system for the Jedi, of essentially having 8 cells and 7 cells, and 6 of them are occupied by normal people that he's just casually randomly electrocuting and torturing, but keeping them awake by having all of these super bright lights on so that all they experienced is pain and suffering, because it's easier to have emotional damage on a Jedi than just physical damage. So Loden's just kind of hanging out, but his head's just filled with all of this pain that these people are experiencing, and that it literally exhausts him just to where he can't even, is stuck in this prison cell.
And Markian's kind of like, well, you better not try anything, because if you do, I'm killing every single person in this, cell block.
That's so smart to just like abuse a Jedi's emotional state like that. I don't think me personally have ever, like, you see people who like affected Jedi's emotional state, but not in the sense of like literally like keeping them in a cell.
Yeah, but other than that, do you have any other, final thoughts or, reactions to this book that we have not mentioned yet?
I think just kind of in conclusion, it's a really fun read.
Yeah.
It was not what I expected it. I think it's paced really well. It's told really well, and just giving you all of these new and exciting characters and worlds and stories. It is really well to, it does a really good job of not losing your attention. I have horrible ADD, so reading a book for me can take a long time,
especially with characters you haven't met yet, and like all these new names being thrown at you. And
I read the first Alphabet Squadron, which I don't think I have it over. I can't remember who wrote it. The first of the 3, and I need to read the second one. And it throws a lot of characters at you. And I struggled a little bit just keeping up with these characters, because a lot of that book was character development, where I think this book does a really good job at giving us the character development as the conflict is happening.
Yeah,
as all of the stuff is happening.
Distinguishing them each from each other.
Absolutely.
Everybody has their own, their own arc and characteristics and personalities, and they're very distinguishable, and I love that.
And I hope that these are characters that we will see much more of, even if they aren't in major roles that they are in now. I hope we are able to see these characters still grow and experience everything that's happening. Overall, I think 10 out of 10. I think Charles Soule really just blew it out of the water with this one. Yeah,
I think this book landed itself in my top 3 favorite Star Wars books of all time. Even just on the first read, I just thought it was,
that's what's up.
I just thought it was that well written. And I thought, that Charles Soule really knows how to deal with these characters and, allow us to relate with them and throw us into the action with them in such a way that flows so well. And, it's so organic. And I really like that a lot about the book. And just overall, there is not much I disliked about it. There's little nitpicky things, but overall, I just love this book.
Yeah, I agree. Everything that I quote unquote have a problem with is nitpicking. Yeah. It's not like an issue that has actually gotten like through all the way to the end. I was already excited to read Into the Dark, the next High Republic novel by Claudia Gray. After reading this, I am extremely excited to read that book now. Yeah. It's just to continue that, especially just to read Claudia Gray. Just,
just reading words that she writes.
Where can you go wrong?
Yeah. Reading words that she writes just makes my heart happy. And I'm so excited.
Hey guys, sorry to break it to you, but this is now a Claudia Gray stan account. Yeah. It's not even Star Wars. It's just Claudia Gray.
We're going to call this the Claudia Gray podcast. But yeah, those are kind of our closing thoughts and our initial impressions of Star Wars Light of the Jedi. Just before this podcast, I gave Jackson a little assignment to kind of put together our fan casting for if this book was made into a movie, who would we cast in like the key roles? And who do you have? Okay, this is what I'm most curious about. Who do you have in your mind casted for Avar Kriss?
So I have 2 for Avar Kriss. My initial big top person to cast was Cate Blanchett. But my second was Dominique McElligott, who played Queen Maeve in The Boys. She's got that Wonder Woman sense to her, and I think that's kind of the vibe that Avar Kriss holds, is that majesticness to it.
Mm-hmm. I have Brie Larson.
I saw that on Twitter the other day. That
is why I said it, because I saw it and I was like,
you're like,
dude, that is
like
perfect.
It does look like her. Yeah, wow.
It kind of does look like her, and I think that Brie Larson has just. I think she would fit so well into the Star Wars universe.
Who's your Elzar man? Because my picks are different.
What do you mean different?
Like, my picks are out there. Like, I want to hear yours, and then I want to share mine.
For Elzar, I have Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah. I have Rami Malek.
Ooh, I saw that. Yeah.
I just think that he would be able to kind of show like the curiosity of Elzar, and not of like naive, but like
in like a wise sense.
Yeah, like I'm trying to learn everything, like just because it sounds fun.
Yeah, and kind of like I forgot to mention this in our review, but Elzar is kind of the first Jedi to call it the Jedi mind trick. Everyone else calls it the Jedi mind touch, and he's like, let's just call it what it is. Yeah. It's a mind trick.
Yeah, he does it on the Santeca.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. That I really like that. Who do you have for Loden Greatstorm?
I have 3 for Loden. Obviously, he was a little bit my favorite. My first is Lance Reddick.
I have him too.
Do you really? Okay, then that was my first pick. My second is Colin Firth, just because I think Colin Firth would be able to give the like playfulness of Loden, of just kind of like being this kind of smart ass kind of person, but still being a badass, we know Colin Firth can do it. My final pick is John Hamm, but that's just because I think John Hamm's a terrific actor and can do it.
Ooh, John Hamm. I haven't thought about that. I think he would also be a good Elzar.
I agree he was originally on my list as Elzar as well, and then I changed him to Loden.
Nice. Cool. Who do you got for Bell Zettifar?
The other night with my lovely girlfriend, who is just awesome, we had our evening by watching High School Musical 2. And in the midst of watching High School Musical 2, specifically in the I Don't Dance song, I had a realization that Corbin Bleu kind of looks like Bell Zettifar. And
if like 2006 Corbin Bleu, I'd be like, heck yeah.
I think he could totally still pull it off. Corbin Bleu's a good actor. It's just he worked on Disney, but like...
Yeah, I like that. I have you ever seen Moonlight?
Yes.
I have Ashton Sanders from Moonlight, the one where he's like the teenager.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That'll be good. Yeah, and I think especially too, if they did it now, he's a little older, that he'd be able to, be that fresh Jedi Padawan.
Yeah, and I think he just has the chops to be able to do whatever.
For sure.
Who do you got for Indira?
I have Denai Guerrera, who plays Michonne in The Walking Dead, and I can't think of her name in the Marvel movies, but she plays T'Challa's bodyguard in the Black Panther movies, and I will tell you in just a second. Okoye. She plays Okoye in the Marvel movies. Because I know that Indira's a master, so she's got to be a little older, but she still is someone who... has a sense of, I guess, realness to them, is someone who's just kind of aware of things. Especially she's someone who Bell is able to kind of show his frustrations to about like what Loden's teaching him. But she's also like, like it sucks, but like you're learning it for a reason. He's like, yeah I know.
And she's kind of like, just trust in Loden. You'll see where this is going.
Trust in Loden. Yeah. I think Denai is someone who would be able to really show that off, because she brings I personally think she brings a warmth to the screen whenever she's on. She can play intense badass characters, but herself is someone where I think if you put her in the shoes of a Jedi, like she just could bring that warmth and that hug of the light to you, while still also being the badass that she is.
Yeah. I went a little bit of a different route. I went with Zoe Kravitz, so something a little younger.
Okay.
But I think like, well, given her look, she just has a great, Jedi look to her that I think is so cool. But she also has like this nuance, like this friendly, but also badass nuance that I love about her. And I think she'd be great as Indira. So
it's that middle-aged, wise, like,
yeah, but she's a little on the younger side, but still.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, this was a kind of a fun one. These last two, I actually found. I just found a website and people are already doing like fan castings for this.
Oh, that's fun.
I found a website that had these last two were. As soon as I saw them, I could not get them out of my mind. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put them on my list. For Porter Engle, I have Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. I have a much different approach to Porter Engle.
That's okay because it's Star Wars.
I made the decision based off of how I think this person would look as the species that Porter Engle is, he's a Ikukrian. Is Ikukrian?
Yeah, it's like it's basically and. We haven't seen it on screen before, and we've only seen like one frame of comic of this species, so it's kind of up in the air.
He looks like Ebony Maw from Infinity War, who is the dude who works for Thanos, who can move stuff with his mind, and he looks like that. My cast is Doug Jones. Who was in Hellboy and The Shape of Water and all them. My other cast, I don't know why. I just think I wanted it. Daniel Craig.
Ooh, he would also be a good Loden.
I think so. I think that too. The reason I picked Daniel Craig for Porter was because I specifically think of Knives Out Daniel Craig in the giddy happiness that he is. Yeah, like it's like take that, but then throw in the fact that like he's just this old dude who's been around forever. I just think Daniel Craig would be able to portray that really well.
Yeah, I like the fatherly aspect of Lawrence Fishburne. Like even if he doesn't quite match like the species, I think they could make it work, and I think he would work really well for
Lawrence Fishburne's. That's a cool choice. I did not connect that. That's a cool choice. I like that a lot.
And last but not least, the big baddie, Marky and Rowe. Who you got?
I have Jared Leto.
That's good. I like that.
Markian reminds me a lot of Jared Leto's character in Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
And Jared Leto, he likes doing weird stuff. He totally would be that kind of person in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I agree. And he has that kind of he has this essence of just kind of being like a savage,
that, like creepy, obsessed god complex.
Yeah, and I like that. My pick is Robert Pattinson.
I wanted to put him on my list, but I didn't know initially as who. And honestly, I also would have put him as,
because he would work well for like the more broken side of Markian that I think we'll end up actually seeing, kind of like a Kylo Ren kind of thing.
I think too is that Markian does a really good job at, when you first meet him, when I first met Markian, I didn't necessarily expect him to be like this person of reason, because the first part you meet him, he talks to the Tempest Runners where he's like, hey, we just caused a big disaster, we should probably lay low. And like that's how the conversation is, and they're just like, why would we lay low? I think Robert Pattinson would do a really good job.
I think so too,
especially that switch in Markian.
Cool. So everybody, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had a lot of fun talking about Light of the Jedi. Please read it if you haven't yet. It is such a great read, and if you have not read it yet and you stayed throughout this entire review, kudos to you. I'm sure you were very, very confused on everything we were talking about. But you can find us right there on Instagram at Through Imperial Eyes Pod, Twitter at Imperial Eyes Pod, and you can search us up on YouTube right there, Through Imperial Eyes Podcast. We should pop up if you put podcast after Through Imperial Eyes, and we're also, on all those platforms, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, all those. Jackson, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Quackson Scalene, Quackson, and Scalene like the triangle. I don't use Instagram all that often. I will plug you my photography Instagram, which is Daleen_photography, Daleen spelled Daleen. Follow me on those two, my Twitter and that Instagram. Those are definitely where I will be more around and active on my feeds. I know some of you guys have followed me on just my actual Instagram, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've posted on it in a year or two. So, and that's just me with social media.
Cool. Well, you can find me right there on Instagram at braydonleadbetter and on Twitter at braydathalon. Also, we're going to add something special to the show, probably, hopefully next week. If you want to ask us a question, or if you want to just leave us a nice message, hit up our Anchor. There's a button to leave us a voice message. If you want to do that, we're going to be answering any and all voice messages we get within the next week, and also hit up our Instagram and Twitter. Throw us some messages, throw us some topics you want us to talk about, and we will be talking about them next week. So get those to us as soon as possible. And also, do not forget to hit us up on Apple Podcasts. Leave that rate, leave that review. It really, really helps the show out. You have no idea. And go ahead and follow us on Spotify there too. But yeah, Jackson, is there anything else you wanted to mention before we head out today?
Read Light of the Jedi, honestly. Like, it's just a good book. It's killer. I'm going to be thinking about it for a hot minute.
Yeah, it sticks with you. It
does stick with you.
Yeah, so we will see you next week, next Thursday, for another brand new edition of Through Imperial Eyes. We'll be catching up on all the Star Wars news that happens from now until next Thursday. Until then, may the Force be with you.
Bye, guys.